Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about the first part of The Two Towers, to be exact, the third book in the Lord of the Rings series. And in this book we are only following a part of the Fellowship of the Ring. So on the one hand we are following Merry and Pippin, who are kidnapped by the Uruk-hai, and on the other hand we're also following Legolas, Gimli and Aragorn, who are trying to hunt them down and save the two hobbits. So the actual quest of bringing the Ring of Power to Mordor is not part of book number 3. It is actually part of book number 4, where we focus on Frodo and Sam, but I'll not be talking about this book in this video, but in my next video about the Lord of the Rings. And I don't know why I'm surprised, but book number 3 had a completely different tone from book number 1 and book number 2 that were already pretty different. So book number 1 focused a lot on introducing us to Middle Earth and introducing us to hobbits and just the situation as a whole. Book number 2 was more adventure plotty like, and book number 3 is also, it also has an adventure plot, but at the same time there's also a lot of social and political commentary that I really enjoyed. The social and political commentary is interwoven with the adventure plot that still continues in book number 3, and this commentary is very much of a time that Tolkien lived, but it's also still very relevant today. So for example, we have the theme of nature versus industry, where we are following the Ents, who are a kind of magical tree that are older than time, and they are described to be quite good and they keep out of the whole conflicts going on in Middle Earth and just mind their own business. And Saruman is actually cutting down the forest in which these Ents live to use the wood to power his furnaces, and with these furnaces he's creating new weapons to fight against the good side. So in summary, Saruman is destroying history, nature and magic just for his own personal gain. And I mean, we kind of see the same thing, just that instead of wizards, it's corporations, people looking for big money. So I think that it's quite funny that we are still fighting the same issues as Tolkien was seeing them in his time at the beginning of the 20th century. We also see how war is changing. So Saruman kind of made or developed the Uruk-hai, who are bigger than orcs, who are more brutal than orcs and stronger. We see this when they are kidnapping Pippin and Merry, that they are able to run under the sun, they don't need any breaks. And Tolkien fought in World War #1, which was the first war when I think chemical weapons were involved and where really millions of people died. And so you see why he would introduce this theme. I don't know whether this book might have been written after World War II, when we also had nuclear weapons. Yes, 54. So Tolkien was living to a time when wars were just becoming more and more brutal, more and more people were dying, and we were pushing or are pushing just these boundaries of science and of nature. Book number 3 also shows that though it might be only one power that starts off a war or starts on this quest of evil, everyone plays their part in it. For example, we have a most obvious example of Saruman, who turns evil to get more power, but we also get to know Theoden and the country of Rohan were infiltrated by Wormtongue, a servant of Saruman's, and he doesn't turn them evil, so they don't take up any weapons against Gondor or the good side, but instead they are made immobile by Theoden just being made weaker and weaker, and by being immobile they aren't able to help the good side, and by that they weaken the good side by not being able to do anything or not doing anything. And again, one sees that Tolkien lived through 2 wars, and his understanding of there is no neutral side. Either you decide to fight for good, but even if you do nothing, you are kind of joining the evil side by not supporting those who are fighting for the light, kind of. So I learned a lot about Middle Earth and just the entire dynamics, where Tolkien again employs his favorite technique of holding long monologues to describe what is going on and how things unfolded. And you might remember that I really did not appreciate that in book number 1. And again, he employs it in ways that I couldn't always understand. But in general, I didn't mind the monologues that much this time, just because the dialogue was so much worse. Anytime Legolas, Gimli or Aragorn opened their mouths, I was hoping so much that they'd start off on a monologue and not a dialogue, just because the dialogue was so cringeworthy. It was forced, it was stilted, and just felt unnatural in every aspect. It actually kind of reminded me of monologues or dialogues in drama settings, when you have characters on stage who tell you all about what they're seeing, where they came from, what their emotions are, how they feel about different characters, because the audience sitting in front of a stage, of course, can't know all these things. So in that setting, it kind of makes sense. But in this bookish setting, where Tolkien has the chance to kind of give us all of this information in a natural way, he kind of doesn't do it. And what's especially interesting about this bad monologue is that it is only so stilted and cringeworthy when men, Legolas or Gimli, speak. When the hobbits speak with one another, it's completely normal. It feels more natural, it flows off the tongue, and it sounds more like how we would speak nowadays. So this might be kind of a technique that Tolkien is using to make us empathize more with the hobbits or feel more on one level with them. That's the only way I can kind of explain it, or in what way it makes sense. Something I haven't mentioned yet, but I use quite a few times whilst reading the book, is these maps. Can you see it? There are maps at the end of the book, and I think these maps are part of every edition, and I thought it was quite fun to use them for this part of the book, because in book number 1 and book number 2 everyone had been traveling together, and it'd been kind of straightforward, everyone trying to get from the Shire to Mordor, so they were moving in a line. But now that the Fellowship had split up, and Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn, Merry and Pippin had nothing to do with the ring anymore, and Merry and Pippin were kidnapped, they were kind of all over the place, and it was good that I could kind of follow their progress and see whether they were getting any closer to each other, what way they were moving. Otherwise I would have been completely lost. I guess someone who has a better visual imagination might have not needed this map, because even with the map I was struggling and I got lost multiple times. And my lack of spatial imagination was quite detrimental a couple of times. For example, we have the first big battle scene of good versus evil, and I just had no clue what was going on most of the time, because Tolkien describes the battleground and who is where and how the two forces are moving and where they clash, and I just could not imagine it. I had no idea what was going on. In the end, I just had to say, I'll read through this part, but I'll just imagine the film battle scene in the back of my mind, because I just don't understand what's going on, which is definitely my issue, not Tolkien's. And I think if I read or had read more battle scenes before, or more fantasy battle scenes, I might have been able to understand more of what was going on, but just in this case I was totally lost. I'm going to end the discussion for The Two Towers Part 1, so book 3 here. I really enjoyed the reading experience of just getting to know Middle-earth better. This book was high-paced, adventurous and fun, and I really enjoyed the social and political commentary. I can really say that slowly I'm considering myself a Lord of the Rings fan, just because of the 3 books I enjoyed 2 a lot and I would really recommend them. But yeah, I already finished book number 4, which I'll be talking about soon, so I'd really appreciate it if you came back to my channel for that. Until then, have a nice day and bye.